Welcome back to another episode of Onward to Victory on this Monday afternoon. Before we get things kicked off here, we're going to wish a special happy birthday to our co-host, Taylor Gottney, who is unfortunately not with us in the studio today. He's back at home in Auburn, but wanted to reach out and say happy birthday to Taylor.
Happy birthday, Taylor.
Big part of this show. He has been the entire year, and hope he's having an amazing day. But I'm Colgin Hirschel. Alongside me is Rhiannon and Boesl today. We got a little bit of a different show for you today with a lot of sports not playing this week. There's only, I think, five games going on between the softball games and the 4 baseball games this week. Besides that, we're going to start off the first half with a little bit of Arizona State, and then the second half we're going to transition into something still college-related, but we're going to talk about a little bit March Madness. But putting that aside, let's start with the baseball series from U of A from this last weekend.
Yeah, so ASU unfortunately did lose this series going 1-2 versus Arizona. Very unfortunate to lose to, their rivals, but the games were pretty close, except for their win. They took a 4-point lead in that, but, they lost by 3 in the first game, lost by 2 in the second. So, they held their own, but it's just being able to finish. We've talked about this team before, just being able to take the win at the end. And, baseball is the smallest thing could happen, and it could just change the pace of the game instantly. So, it's not like hope's completely lost, obviously, but it's just kind of unfortunate that they took those 2 losses, although they were very close.
In this weekend specifically, it was just a lot of frustration on the side of Arizona State. You go up 4-1 in that first game, and then there's a 5th inning collapse by Ben Jacobs, who had a terrific first 4 innings and faltered in the 5th inning, and that kind of just led to the loss for the Sun Devils. Second game, they were down the entire game. It took until the 9th inning for them to get within even 2, which they tried to rally. Unfortunately for them, they didn't. But then game 3, they started off really slow once again, going down 4-0 in the 4th inning, but 4 runs in the 6th put them up 6-4, and they never looked back. It was thanks to the relief pitcher Cole Carlone, who came into relief for Jaden Alba, who struggled early in the game. Carlone went 4 innings pitched, and he struck out 10 without giving up a single hit. So he was terrific on the side of the Sun Devils. Another successful player was Matt King, who went 3 for 3 with a home run in the 5th inning, got 3 RBIs in that game as well. But the third game was definitely the best for the Sun Devils out of the 4 that they played. They obviously lost the game in Tucson earlier in the season as well, 3-2. But game 3 was definitely the best for them.
Yeah, and if you look ahead at their schedule, they're facing CSUN and then Cincinnati and Purdue and Texas Tech. They have a pretty good lineup coming up, and I honestly think that they'll be able to take these wins if they come out aggressive. And like you said, it's just a little frustrations and just not being able to get that dominance. But when they have that, there's no stopping them. We've seen them have insane score margins, going 17-10 against Ohio State. Against TCU, they absolutely dominated them. And, it's just, just being able to start with that and close and not have that, chaos within the game.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned the schedule coming up. I personally believe that if they want any chance of making currently they're on pace to be in the tournament. I don't know if they're supposed to host a regional after this weekend or not, but if they want to be as successful as everyone had them pointed out to be, they have to win most of the series that they have coming up. I think that these next 5 games against Purdue, CSUN, and then the road series against Cincinnati, if they don't sweep those, I think that's a unsuccessful 5-game stretch. But you're really looking ahead to that final weekend in Oklahoma against Oklahoma State, where they should win that. They will have trouble in that, but if they can win that, I think that would really solidify their chances for the Big 12 tournament later that week, I guess.
Yeah, because right now they're currently tied with TCU, Arizona, and Kansas State in the Big 12, with their record being 8-4. So I feel like it's just going to be a battle between those teams of who's going to pull out the wins. And, who comes out on top at the end of that.
Yeah, the Sun Devils dropped out of the rankings. Obviously, they went 1-2 over the weekend against a very similarly ranked Arizona team, but Arizona did drop to 24. Actually, in some rankings, they were ranked number 24 or number 22. In the D1 baseball, they weren't ranked. They jumped up to number 24. Arizona should have been ranked higher than Arizona State. I don't know why they weren't. I know they had a slow stretch of games, but Arizona is just the better team than Arizona State. Nonetheless, they are back in the rankings. The Sun Devils dropped out. It'll take a lot for them to get back into those rankings. They'll need to string together a couple of huge wins in these next few weeks leading into the playoffs. But this weekend didn't help at all. And it's just kind of like, it was unfortunate because in a lot of the other sports, obviously basketball is an anomaly, but they kind of dominated U of A in most of the other sports that they played.
Yeah, although I feel like the competition is kind of different when it comes to baseball. I feel like U of A is a little bit better than in baseball than maybe the other sports for some of them. But yeah, it is a little unfortunate, but it's always good to just have that rivalry and just see how it plays out. And they did take those losses, but at least they ended the series with a win that was, double their score. So it's still a win.
They also avoided really unfortunate history. If they lost that, it would have been the first time that they were swept in a home series against U of A since 2017.
Oh, boy.
And I looked throughout the entire website of ASU baseball, went down their schedule from every single year that's listed. They have not lost all games against U of A in a season on the website.
Ever?
It goes back as far as 1998. Not a single season where they got completely season swept by U of A. So they really avoided a meltdown in terms of a team perspective. I know after Game 2, I was in the press room for Willie Bloomquist's comments, and he was not happy at all, obviously, but he just said that all the hits that they got were miserable. He said that he would cut or would bench guys if he could. He didn't list specific guys, but he would bench guys if he could, but everyone's sick on the team.
That's really interesting. And honestly, I feel like Bloomquist has done a pretty good job. We've talked about it throughout all of Arizona State sports. Like, they've done such a good job recruiting, and he kind of touched on that earlier this year, and I think he's been doing a good job leading this team. And honestly, I feel like it's his honesty and like his drive and his like commitment to the players themselves of, saying like, hey, I would bench you. And I feel like that's what kind of gives them that drive, and like that honesty can like really bring the team together, I feel like. So, yeah.
Well, they're going to have some work to do over the next few weeks. We'll transition to the other diamond for a little bit of softball. Talk about Kelsey Hall, who's a graduate outfielder. I got the chance to call her game yesterday where she hit a huge 2-run homer in, I believe, the 5th inning, potentially 4th inning. I don't know. Brought Arizona State up by 4-0 over Kansas. They ended up winning that game 4-3 after a falter in the last few innings. Kenzie Brown was terrific as always. But Kelsey Hall has had a pretty solid season so far for the Sun Devils.
Yeah, she's just been, I feel like, from what it seems like, just a consistent athlete. She's leading the team in batting average, slugging average, and walks, and she's second in hits and home runs right now and tied for strikeouts. And, like, honestly, I just think this softball team is very well balanced. I think that, they have a few standout players, but it's a very humble team. They all work out really well together. But just Kelsey Hall just kind of seems to be kind of taking that extra step of dominance on the diamond, and just, and, she's kind of an older player, and just being able to take that leadership role, although she wasn't at Arizona State for her full career. It's just, I think it's important to have those leadership roles, being able to not only be the leader, like, speaking wise, but also, like, showing up and showing it in action, showing it in the way that you play is really important.
I don't want to take away from Hall at all, but if you're mentioning success in the Sun Devils, you have to mention Kenzie Brown. I mean, this past weekend, she started twice, had 2 complete games over the weekend. She pitched 13 innings, 14 innings, something like that, had 26 strikeouts.
And she is coming back from an injury as well.
Scratch that, 29 strikeouts. My math was incorrect. But she has been unbelievable throughout the entire year. She had that huge 18 strikeout game back against BYU a few weeks ago. She has kind of put this team on her back in a way. The bats have been there, but she has been the backbone for the Sun Devils the entire season. Without a doubt, she is their ace. There's no question to that.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. She started out at Tulsa, so I'm curious if she's going to try to, after the season, stay for a grad year. I feel like that'd be really beneficial for ASU, but also just considering maybe how they finish this year. I mean, they're doing pretty well. They are 26-14 right now, and they're 8-7 Big 12. So I'm curious if she'll be willing to stay. But I feel like, at least from an outsider's perspective, it seems like this team just has really great chemistry, and I don't think that, she would want to leave unless if obviously she had a better opportunity. But I just think that, like you said, she's doing really well at ASU, and I'm just curious to see what her plans are for the future.
Yeah, they face off against UTEP. They actually go on a 5-game road streak. They go to Texas to play UTEP on Wednesday, a doubleheader on Wednesday, actually. So that'll be fun for them. And then they have a road series against Utah later that week. So that'll be a lot of travel for the team, playing 5 games in the span of 4 days. But I think that Megan Bartlett has gotten this team prepared. They'll come back and have 4 games at home, so they'll get a little bit of rest.
Facing Baylor, that'll be good. And, hopefully, this season's coming to a close pretty soon, and hopefully, the fans can pop out, show some support just to help them finish well, and, just letting this team do their thing.
The fans have always been pretty good for the softball program, but that'll do it for the first half of Onward to Victory. When we come back, we'll be discussing a little bit of a switch, not so much Arizona State, as their basketball teams are not in March Madness, either section. But we will talk about the March Madness tournaments from the men's and women's perspective, as we have the men's final going on right now. But that'll be when we come back from break to continue the theme of John Mayer in support for our co-host, Taylor Gottney. We will listen to Last Train Home by John Mayer. Welcome back to the second half of Onward to Victory here on Blaze Radio. We're going to start off with the women's March Madness tournament that wrapped up last night. UConn defeated South Carolina 82-59 in a huge blowout. And it was a fun tournament to watch.
Yeah, this was a rematch after South Carolina defeated UConn in 2022, and this was just pretty unexpected to have such a huge blowout, but it was a really important game, for Paige Buchers. She has just had quite the career. Her freshman year was COVID. She suffered an injury, leaving her out, and she's just a really great athlete. So for her to be able to take home this win was absolutely huge. And just a little fun fact about Miss Paige. She is a Vikings fan, which I find amazing. But UConn absolutely dominated yesterday. I mean, South Carolina didn't really play like South Carolina. They've appeared in the past 5 tournaments, I believe, and they took the win last year. They have Dawn Staley coaching and leading them well. They have very powerful athletes, and, they just didn't perform as they typically do, and they took it well, but it was an interesting game for sure.
Yeah, and for Paige, it's gonna be kind of she's looking to be the projected first overall pick in the next draft for the WNBA. There's been some injuries on that front, so that's why she's kind of catapulted up there, but she definitely has deserved it. She's been one of the most popular women's basketball players this season. Obviously, last year was the year of Caitlin Clark, and she obviously performed as well as she did, and then went to Indiana and is playing there and is lights out once again. But Paige is looking at being the first overall pick, which would be huge. Do a quick Google search on the WNBA standings. I'm not a aficionado when it comes to the WNBA, but
It's also just cool to see the way the sport's been growing. It's been growing like absolutely crazy, especially in college and high school, especially here in Arizona. But, the WNBA, I hope that it will continue to expand, get some more teams, get some more opportunities for the athletes. And, because the competition is phenomenal, and it would just be unfortunate to see like great athletes not have the opportunity to excel just due to the the size of the franchise.
Yeah, it's looking like that she's going to be heading to Dallas this season. Los Angeles finished last in the league, but they did not win the lottery. So she'll be going to Luka Doncic's former home in Dallas. Almost went to Luka Doncic's current home in Los Angeles, but my Chicago Sky was in third place. Unfortunately, I could not win that. That would have been pretty cool to see another superstar come to Chicago.
I was going to say, it'd be pretty awesome to see Mercury pick her up, but...
Nah, the Mercury are too good for that.
We'll see.
Anyways, she'll likely go to Dallas for this next season. So it'll be her and Caitlin Clark battling out in that central area of the country. So it'll be an interesting matchup once those two finally play. But we will transition over to the men's side of things, as the final game is going to be taking place here in just under half an hour. First tip is at 5:50. Teams playing are Florida and Houston after it was an all one seed Final Four for the men's bracket.
Yeah, this bracket has been pretty interesting to look. I mean, a lot of the games are really close. So I'm really curious to see how this game is going to end up. Like, yeah, if you look at the bracket, Houston just won by 3 points, and Florida won by 6. Like, these have been really tight games, so it's just so much could have happened. So I feel like this was a really good, turnout for the season, and it's going to be really interesting to see how these two teams battle it out.
Yeah, and for Houston, it was a massive comeback. They were down 14 with 8 minutes left in the game, and they rallied back and defeated Duke. It was the 5th largest comeback in Final Four history. And then on the other side of things, we won't touch on that too much as it was Auburn who was defeated by Florida.
Sorry, Taylor.
Shouts Taylor Gottney once again. But Florida and Houston in the finals, it's the first time they're playing since 1973, so there's not a whole lot of history between these two teams. But Houston has come out on top in both of those games over the Gators. For the Gators, they're looking for their 3rd national title in program history, and the Cougars are looking a little bit like the underdogs despite that 2-0 record versus Florida, as they have not won a single national title in their program history.
I love when that happens. I love when like a new team comes out and just like surprises everyone, or just to get something new. You said they haven't faced each other in a very long time, so this can be really exciting. They started this bracket going 78-40 in their first game, and then as the bracket went on, they had really tight games. So I feel like they have to be this team that just like in like the deepest part of them, like they want this so bad. And they played Duke, which I was just looking in Cooper Flagg on Duke. Like, come on, that's actually insane. He's 18 years old.
Newly 18.
Yeah, and he's already projected to be the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft.
Yeah, he's been one of the superstars in college basketball the entire season. Arizona State went to Duke earlier in the season and got trounced. They were lost by, I think it was like 80. I don't know. It was unreal. But
it's just crazy to see, like, we've seen this throughout, I feel like, all the sports, that there's just that one stellar athlete. We have I'm blanking on his name, Potter from hockey.
Colin
we have
Potter.
Quaintance. We have these crazy young athletes that just dominate. And to see Flagg, kind of just play this well and bring Duke so far. I mean, Duke is typically a good team, obviously, but he's just a fantastic athlete, and I just had to give him a little shout out because it just blows me away to see how young these athletes are, and it just gives us it kind of gives us a glimpse of what the future might hold for the sports. They continue to excel, they continue to advance, and it's just really exciting. And also kind of seeing how the sports themselves adjust, because I feel like the NBA and the NFL, they kind of keep changing their rules. like in the games, and the gameplay kind of changes. So I'm curious to see, as the talent increases at such a young age, and if they continue to change the type of gameplay, how that kind of is going to, affect the chemistry in the game of the sports.
So looking ahead to the game tonight, what are your predictions for Houston versus Florida?
Honestly, my hope is for Houston. Like, they're, you said they haven't taken home a win, and I would love to see them take home this win, against Florida. They fought hard, like we said, winning against Duke, Gonzaga, Purdue. Like, they've taken some big wins, and just I think it would be fantastic to see them just finish off this season, take home that dub. What about you?
I think Houston's going to rally with their momentum after coming back and defeating Duke. I think that they're going to lock this one up. But as far as the tournament-wise has gone, what have been your biggest surprise in terms of teams that have been successful, and then also your team that didn't do as well, that didn't go as expected?
I would say seeing, like, Gonzaga take that loss against Houston and also UConn, I don't know. I think just those teams, I remember, like, hearing those used to be, like, pretty good basketball, and just kind of seeing, we mentioned earlier, like, these two teams you haven't seen in a while at least face each other, but it's just interesting to see how the teams have kind of been falling short than what they have been.
I think for me, both of those, the answer to both of those questions come in the same matchup, in the Arkansas and St. John's matchup. It was Arkansas and St. John, 10 seed Arkansas, 2 seeded St. John, and Arkansas came away with the win. And for me, I think that obviously it's a 10-2 upset, so Arkansas, big surprise, whatever. But from the side of St. John, I picked them in a couple of my brackets to win the entire thing. I know a lot of people picked them as one of the most picked number 2 seeds to win the entire thing. And falling in I think it was the round of 32, might have been the Sweet 16, but that happening so early was just a big failure for them. So as we wrap up this Taylor Gottney birthday special, we will say goodbye on Onward to Victory. We'll lead you back into break with another John Mayer song, Walt Grace's Submarine Test.